March is known for the end of winter and the arrival of springtime, a season of warmth and renewal. For history buffs, it's also known for the date Julius Caesar met his last. But don't let time pass you by like a bunch of old Romans. Hello again, SA here. And I'm just here to remind you to get your copy of my book series, Glitch. It's available on Barnes & Noble and other fine bookstores, as well as Amazon. The links are down below in the description. And while you're out enjoying the spring weather, you can also indulge in my story of a kidnapped teen model and a reluctant jewel thief who are on the run from the law. Yeah, you don't have to guess. I still have other books coming down the pike. So as long as I don't run into any difficulties. You'll be seeing those books too, I'm sure. Now let's get back to the video.
Looking at an industrial laser, which emits an extraordinary light not to be found in nature. It can project a spot on the moon, or at closer range, cut through solid metal. I will show you. This is gold, Mr. Bond. All my life I've been in love with its color, its brilliance, its divine heaviness. I welcome any enterprise that will increase my stock, which is considerable.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last. The purpose of our two previous encounters is now very clear to me. I do not intend to be distracted by another. Good night, Mr. Bond.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Hello again, SA here. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt about the mess that Trump finds himself in New York with that that James woman and that ridiculous kangaroo court that she put him through. Yeah, fraud my ass. I mean, how can I have fraud with no victims, right? I mean, good grief. Anyone, for example, remembers the Enron mess knows there was a lot of fraud there. Or how about the savings and loan debacle of the 1980s, where a whole bunch of people got defrauded there and lost a lot of money, and most of the people never got their money back. Yeah. I mean, good grief. Ever heard the phrase pyramid scheme? What do you think that means in English? It means that in order for a pyramid scheme to work, you have to have people coming into the bottom to make sure the people at the top maintain their account balances. I mean, anyone who remembers Bernie Madoff, now that's what you call a scam artist. Yeah. In fact, that guy actually died in prison. But Trump? No. I mean, because I've said it long ago. Trump, he's basically a used car salesman in a very nice suit. Yeah, because anyone who's ever dealt with Trump on a business level knows that Trump will do anything, will say anything to get you to buy that condo, or get you to buy that apartment building, or get you to buy that casino, or get a membership in one of those Trump resorts or country clubs. I mean, that's that guy's bread and butter. He's a salesman. That's what he does. And is he always successful? Well, it depends who you ask. Sometimes he screws up. I mean, remember the Taj Mahal casino in Atlantic City? Yeah. Even his dear old dad, Fred Trump, said that his son may have spent too much money on that property. But what's going on now has nothing to do with business or property. It's all about politics. And of course, some of you people out there, smart people, are aware of this. Because that cockamamie judge who tends to make naked selfies of himself on TikTok, which I'm not going to get into, yeah, most people, smart people, said that that judgment against Trump was completely arbitrary. No, the guy basically pulled a number out of the crack of his ass and said, "Okay, Trump, you owe the damn state of New York, nearly $500 million, and for what? Nothing. Other than, I guess, maybe hurting their little fifis on Twitter, I suppose, but that was years ago." And then, of course, like you smart people said, "Oh, this has nothing to do with even that. This has to do about the election." And I agree. And of course, right now you have ghouls like Whoopi Goldberg, who, I must add, before she started being a political commentator, I actually liked her acting. I mean, she did a good job in that movie Ghost. Yeah. You should look it up sometime, with Patrick Swayze. Yeah, look it up. That's actually a pretty good film she was in. But anyway. And these people sitting there just salivating at the idea that James Bond could take possession of Trump Tower and whatnot. Yeah, well, I have to admit, I'm not a real estate fella, but there's a lot of smart people who are. And they said that Trump, he has very few options. I mean, because the funny thing about being a businessman, any businessman, that usually don't carry a lot of cash on you. And then, of course, some people, you right now, are probably saying, but hey, back when Steve Jobs was still alive, Apple was cash heavy. Yeah, well, that was Steve Jobs. And I remember those stories. Because when he was still alive, they said Apple, because of all those iPhones and iPads they were selling, they had a lot of cash. In fact, they had so much cash that back during the waning days of the Bush administration, they were hiding that cash in Ireland, because they had multiples, subdivisions of Apple, and they chose that one because it was basically like a tax haven, so they could hide a lot of cash there, and then they played a little fancy dance with their taxes and said, okay, all that cash that was sitting in the Irish division of Apple came from that division, even though most smart people said, no, that's rubbish because there's not enough iPhones in Ireland to explain all those billions and billions of $100 bills. Yeah. But in the case of Trump, he was never cash heavy. Indeed, anyone who took a granular level at Trump's assets, it's always been in properties, buildings, golf courses, casinos. Indeed, when Trump first became president, the LA Times broke down, exactly what Trump owed. And even they were surprised that he had owned properties on at least, 3 continents. North America, Europe, the Middle East. Yeah, people were kind of surprised. And indeed, they say he also owned some properties in Panama, even though it was basically as part of a leasing agreement. But as far as cash, yeah, he didn't have a lot of cash on him. I mean, yeah, he probably had enough cash, to go and slip a $20 bill to like maybe the shoe shine boy in the lobby of Trump Tower. Because I remember Jesse Waters in one of his programs, he said that Trump had occasion of doing that, where he would come down from the penthouse and just walking around the lobby. Because if you've ever been to Trump Tower, there's a lot of like small like little shops and businesses in that level. And if he start chatting up some of the employees there, they said occasionally the guy would just slip him a $20 bill just out of the blue for no reason. Why? I don't know. It's just the way he rolls. But what's going on now, these people are clearly trying to take away his assets. And there's a good reason why. Because even though it hasn't been spoken much in the regular mainstream media, people in independent media said that, Trump, he built up a pretty decent war chest. How decent? Well, a lot more better than the DNC, that's for sure. But by most estimates, Trump has in about $400 million in cash. And of course, anyone who can do arithmetic would say, really? $400 million? Yeah. $100 bills. No IOUs. And then when you look at that judgment against him, and way most people had calculated it comes to about $50 million above the actual cash reserves that Trump built up for his campaign. And at that point you realize, oh, so that's what the deal is. Yeah, that's the deal. You see, that James woman with that stupid, fried chicken grin on her face, she don't give a damn about Trump Tower. She don't give a damn about the various Trump casinos and properties and country clubs, or even the Trump winery down there in Virginia. She don't give a damn about any of that. She's trying to take the cash that Trump built up for the presidential campaign. And I guess the presumption was that Trump, had to admit the man does have an ego on him, would sacrifice his campaign in order to save his properties. But I think she may have miscalculated. Because while it's true, the Trump Tower is important to him. I mean, it was probably one of the first properties he built from scratch, as opposed to simply purchasing. Because if you look at Trump's history, indeed, anyone who saw that great documentary about him, it was called The Choice. It came out in 2016. It was about the 2016 election. Of course, the documentary was also about Hillary Clinton, but anyway, it spoke about how back in the 80s, Trump, after he got some seed money from dear old dad, he did a little wheeling and dealing and was able to get the financing for Trump Tower, and he had it built from scratch. And that was the first property that he had it made free and clear, in his name. And the fact that Letitia James is salivating at taking Trump Tower from him, well, I guess that would be like a bone in the throat for Trump. I mean, hell, that was the first thing that he ever could say that was his. It'd be like, being a little kid who gets a paper route and takes that first dollar bill that they ever earned and they put it like in a little frame and hang it on the wall. So that's the first dollar ever earned. And here comes this scumbag, James, going to try to take that $1 off the wall to say, ha ha, like Nelson from The Simpsons. But I have a feeling that Trump, despite his ego, he's someone who can add and subtract. And when I mean add and subtract, I'm not talking about merely numbers. I'm talking about priorities. I mean, yeah, Trump Tower is important to him, But I believe that becoming president of the United States again is also important to him. And I think he's going to do a little arithmetic and he's going to decide that while that building that he built back in the 80s is important to him, it's important to his ego, it's important to his legacy, uh, being president again is a little bit more important to him. And I think that when the bill comes due, he is not going to give James the satisfaction of taking the funding for his campaign from him. Now, of course, some of you will probably say, well, she's probably going to try to take it anyway because of the way the judgment was probably written against him. Oh, yeah, she'll probably try. But I think she probably won't be able to succeed. Because I think the way the federal laws are written, a person can have personal assets, and then they can have something called the assets of the Trump campaign. And I think there is like a fine line that separates the two. So yeah, she could probably seize his assets, seize Trump Tower, even probably seize some of his bank deposits. But she probably won't be able to lay her hands on the assets of the Trump campaign, which I think that's what she's really gunning for. Because think about it. Back in the past, back during the bad old days of Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton and John Adams, even back in those days, people needed some funding to run for president. But of course, in the modern era, you need a whole lot more, much more. Indeed, back when Hillary, ran for president, in 2016, she also ran in 2008. Which I'm not going to get into. The estimates were, after the fact, that she spent $1 billion. Now, of course, most of you say, well, she's not a billionaire. True, she's not. A lot of that money came from the DNC and a lot of these, like dark money donors. Yeah. Remember the Clinton Foundation? Oh yeah. Money from weird little dark corners of the earth like that stuff. Now, of course, Trump doesn't have his equivalent of the Clinton Foundation, where he's wheeling and dealing and getting all kinds of weird money from weird people all over the world to do weird and strange things, if you know what I mean. And I think that's what James and her cohorts are aware of. But I think, they don't care about Trump Tower. They're trying to get their hands on the money for the Trump campaign. And I guess that's what they were counting on, that Trump will give up his campaign in order to save Trump Tower. And I think they miscalculated. I think they're going to find out that Trump is willing to go through the damn the trials of Job, from the Old Testament, in order to become president again. And you say that that sounds like someone who has integrity. I suppose it does. Because the whole purpose of the trials of Job was to get Job to denounce God. And Job never did. And because he never did, God restored him. Restored his family, his fortune, everything. And even though I wouldn't come out and say that Trump is a biblical figure, I guess I wouldn't be surprised that 1,000 years from now, people will be talking about the trials of Trump. How his enemies ran him through a whole lot of bullshit. And yet, this is a big if he becomes president again and basically rights the ship that is the United States, and then punishes its enemies, people like James, and somehow, some way, he restores his family fortune. Not supposed to be all good. Yeah. So for all you people out there who are getting, blackpilled over the trials of Trump, you shouldn't. Because evil only triumphs when good people stand by and do nothing. And someone like Trump and people who follow Trump, they're not standing by and doing nothing. They're doing something. And because they're doing something, people like James, people like Fannie down there in Georgia, and people like that special prosecutor, that hitman that works for Joe Biden, they won't prevail. They won't succeed. And I think that'll be good for everyone, especially Trump. Yeah. I believe it will. Well, that's all I have to say about the perils of Trump. That's my opinion.